Yeah, okay, here. Yeah, as part of the whole like OntoCommons demonstrator experience, what was really important for us was to like, I think I remember I said to Mikhail, like, yeah, but are we going to do something? Like, are we going to actually make this concrete? And we need some like support and some ideas on how to work with, or like how to kind of work with front ends regarding to this, and maybe even like network with other people who are working on exactly these same things. And so, and then another current that was that Aparna and her colleague Alexander came to us, or we kind of found each other, and we were talking that one thing that we still need to figure out much more is the digital handling of our the ethical handling of our digital data and of personal data. So marrying those two things, I said, okay, what if we actually take this digital ethics thing that we want to do and take it to OntoCommons? Like we could spend a week in Oslo prototyping something we haven't yet seen, and there's something that just like it wasn't existing on a contextual level, it was existing more like an intention level that, hey, we want to do something with digital ethics. And we think that the interior designer knowledge graph information that we already have might be the way. So we weren't really sure, but we just had a hunch this could be it. So, and Aparna is going to take you through our presentation where she's going to show you a whole story on how we did that. But that was the initial spark for this whole collaboration and us coming to Oslo.
Right. Okay, so we've taken a bit of an approach, a holistic approach of saying how do we use knowledge graphs for a business outcome of how do you make, how do you personalize shopping experiences, and how do you do it in a way that gives customers choice and agency. Now, as a state of, what are we starting with is that we have lots of products and there are lots of add-ons, but how do we help everyone choose? How do we navigate it as customers? How do we navigate it as a business? How do we support this whole process? So let's, from the as states, let's look at what are the problems that we're trying to address. So customers want to be able to have a personalized journey and get what they want without giving away their privacy. As a business, we want to give recommendations that assist that journey in a way that helps them take good decisions, but also in a way that we can make it a bit less opaque, so that customers can approach our range and we can personalize it at scale. At the same time, EU regulation. So I think we probably over the last couple of days, we've talked quite a lot about Data Act and Data Governance Act. We're also interested in looking at the Digital Services Act and a little bit of the AI Liability Directive of how to make recommendation, or how do you work with recommendations. And so the kind of aim, how we scoped this exercise was to say how, let's develop a prototype where we take knowledge graph and just in-session data to deliver a personalized experience to customers so that we can also uphold their choice and agency. Of course, it's an experiment because we don't know how it works, but that's what we tried. And this is kind of the scope of the experiment, where we said, okay, can we deliver this and how do we do that? And this is the way in which we've approached it, right? Customers come as you are, and we bring what we have. Customers can share as much or as little information as they want. So that's taking a first-party or zero-party data approach. And as IKEA, we do have really good interior design knowledge, and we have the fantastic knowledge graph, which encapsulates some of that. So how do we marry these two together to truly give agency, and how could that work? It took quite a bit of pre-work. We spent quite a bit of time before coming here to see how this all scopes into one prototype. And the approach we took is to say, okay, this is an anonymous user, no cookies, no trackers. How do we use a very limited number of parameters to contextualize all the things that we offer to help people meet their needs. So then, the journey is triggered from only a few pages. So we've also got to see where we have all of the data already gathered. And from there, we've taken a progressive, transparent, and intuitive recommendations as an approach. And yeah, this is quite exciting. And then now you can see what we actually came up with. This is how we arrived here. And over to you, Tane.
That this is completely coded.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, so we came together with the Knowledge Graph team, and we decided to actually try something on IKEA.com. Now, we don't have control of IKEA.com as its production site, so what we've done is we used a Chrome extension, and we've built a front-end component on top of IKEA.com. So it uses the real IKEA address to understand the context. We've also built a small API locally, just to do this. So we have Sparkle endpoints that have been created by Katariina, and with a little Node.js server that we've just built over the last couple of days, we've built some URL endpoints that allow us to send the URL of the page that you're on, and that will give us the context. And then some other endpoints that will make more sense once we see the demo. So you're on IKEA.com, and you've decided you want a new sofa. So you go to Shop All Furniture, and you pick your sofa section. And what we're doing here is we're just popping up this little window on top of the site. And we're saying here, welcome, you're an anonymous guest, and this is an anonymous session. But what we feel we can do is we can give you some recommendations based on some questions. So here, with our product categories like sofa, we have appropriate rooms, and we have appropriate activities that we see with it. So if I was to select my living room, you can see here that we're getting product categories for the living room, and we're asking the customer, do you want to personalize further? So these two at the top come from the context of where you are on the site, but these two come from the context of the products available. So as you can see here, we have nearly 1,500 indoor sofas, 150 sofa beds, 1,300 fabric sofas. So there's quite a lot of products and choices here to look at. So let's have a think about what we want. So maybe we like a style. Maybe we like a Scandinavian style. Well, great. We've only got 350 sofas to look through now. Maybe we like a American country. 44. And here we can say, what's our budget? Maybe we have a medium budget that we can go with. So here, yeah, Stradamon, for example. But maybe we'll have a bit of a thinner wallet. So maybe we just want to go down a level and see. And now we're looking at them, we're thinking, not fond of the colors. So maybe let's go back to contemporary. So all of this is based on the recommendation of the customer giving us some context of what they would like to see. And here we can actually even filter it down by activity, because we can see sofas that you socialize with, but maybe you just want a sofa bed for your living room. So with this, a little bit of a network connection, slow issue going on, but yeah, of course, this would load the data.
This is a perfect time to mention that also all of this is on live data. So all of this is actually on top of our one core graph DB that's in stage, because that's where we developed our prototype one. So just,
Yeah. And of course, we have other products as well. So maybe along with the sofa, I want to think about, do I need a new work table? So maybe I'm going to have a look at my living room for the tables and see what we have. Oh yeah, I can get a laptop stand. Maybe I want to look at dining room. Yeah, got some dining room tables. And here, again, we can filter down by style and price. Okay.
What I'm happy to do now is to then also walk you through how we actually put this into the ontology. Then I have to log in again. Okay. Shoot. I need to relog. I need to stop sharing the screen for a while. Yeah.
If I log in, is it will show the same thing?
No, you don't have editing.
Okay, you got your laptop. Tane, do you want to tell us, so how much have you been, how much of this has been written while you were here?
All of this code has been written while we're here.
API,
So the whole API, the first couple of days we were working on the API side, working with the Sparkle points, and pretty much most of this UI was built yesterday.
Actually, let's while I log in, let's share the screen of the diary in our present. Yeah, okay, we'll just log in. Yeah.
If anyone has any questions in the meantime.
This is the perfect time to ask Tane questions.
Yeah. So on the
Just remember to repeat
Yeah,
the question
yes,
to the
yeah.
microphone. Yeah.
yeah, so on the top it said that the session was anonymous and you can choose whether to save your data. So you didn't show where that is, but is that something that happens like after they add something to the cart, or?
So the question is on the text that said that you would be able to save your data. Unfortunately, it's a hackathon. We didn't have time to finish it.
Oh, okay. So what would that functionality, like how would that work? Would you invite the user to create an account and save their data, or?
Potentially. I mean, from a UX perspective, I think that's something that we'd have to figure out what's the best way to do that. But for us, the point was that all of these recommendations, we're not using any cookies, we're not using any unintended data to try and figure out what a customer wants. We're actually asking the customer explicitly what it is their needs are.
And the kind of follow-up related question. So in the presentation at the beginning, you said that it would be a transparent experience. And so is that what you mean by transparency? You're telling the user right at the beginning that, hey, this is anonymous, you have your choices. Is that what you mean by transparency?
Yeah.
Question?
So in this hackathon,
Please repeat the question.
Yes. How do we do transparency was your question, right?
Well, I was asking if that was how you implemented transparency, was by notifying the user.
The question is if we do transparency by notifying the customer. So transparency is a principle, and through this prototype, we're also trying to see how we can, what implementation and practices for that look like. So one feature that is important in this experiment and something that we would like to take forward is to say if it's just in session, one is that, yes, what data you give us here, you know what we're asking and you know what you're inputting. So if it does get more sensitive, we're not assuming things. So that makes profiling a bit more transparent. And the beauty of Knowledge Graph there is if you give us a certain piece of information, we can show you how that connects to your recommendations because there's semantic data there. And there's a few more ideas in how we want to take this forward. So when the session ends, they can potentially, and this is an idea, we haven't tested it yet, is to say, do you want to just take your products and go forward, or do you also want to save your inputs? The whole idea of keeping this in session and anonymous was so that we can create that boundary and make that a very intentional jump. We still have to figure out technically how we'll implement it, but that's the thought process as we go through this.
And maybe just one thing to add to that is we didn't get to finish one of the other features, which we'll show the ontology side of it. But for example, if we ask you if you're living with children, maybe that's a sensitive question to you. But by doing that, if you give us the answer, we can give you more relevant products based on that.
And then it's up to you if you want to actually save that or not. Yes, please. Yep. Gentleman in white. Yes. White shirt first.
Since I'm completely ignorant about these, how it works on, let's say, on an existing site, or maybe even on your site today. I can do these down selections. It's for this, for so in the future, right?
So the short answer
comes with all cookies.
Yep.
I mean, there's a huge amount stored, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, the question was, how is the industry standard now? How is it being done? And I cannot actually speak much for IKEA.com since that's a different company that's running it. But having worked in Zalando as well before previously, I have some inkling to how it goes. And basically, the idea is in those cookies, everything is stored. You have huge amounts of data, and then you have data scientists scratching their heads and trying to mine for weak signals, what we call weak signals. So I think there was like a whole army. There was a team, at least a big team, that was focused on customer intent, and they were scratching their heads for a long time. I sat next to them. And so what we're doing is the opposite. We're approaching customers with strong signals. And it's really it's the same experience we have in the store. You don't want somebody who's your stalker to greet you when you come to the IKEA store and smiling to themselves. I think I know everything about you, and I'm just going to talk to you and give you these things. I'm just going to appear next to you and be like, this is what you want. You don't want that in the store. Why would you want it online? And that's what we are saying, that actually we could just turn this whole thing around and be a little bit more direct.
Yes, but then you also want to.
Yes, please.
I think you already answered me. My question was, what did you think is the greatest benefit of using ontologies instead of traditional relational databases?
Exactly. So the benefit of ontologies and then the instances following those ontologies is that we can craft a straightforward, transparent experience that actually asks upfront and knows what to ask. So we've done it like Tane showed it. It's contextual and sensitive to the URL or the place in the IKEA.com where the customer current list is. So these are sensitive to the area of sofas and so on. Yeah.
And I would just add one thing. In the store experience, when you go in to buy something, you speak to our co-workers, they'll spend 10, 15 minutes with you asking questions, trying to find out what your situation is, what your budget is, and the size of your property and your living situation. And that's there to help you. So we're really seeing that as the extension of the co-worker into the digital space.
And actually, so if I kind of run through the ontology, what you're seeing here, the product category with all its properties. So this is a shackle shape representation, and these are classes. The boxes are classes in our ontology. This part was developed for us to recommend accessories to products. And that's where we hosted a lot of interior designer knowledge. Now we're building on this interior designer knowledge, and during this hackathon, we made this extension. We said that we're going to track the complementary and essential things or the activities that are essential or complementary to a product category. Product category would be sofas or tables. And we're going for all room types that we have, we're going to say which product categories they host. So a living room would host a sofa, etc. And this information was added during this hackathon. The ontology was created during this bit of ontology was created during this hackathon, and all the Sparkle queries using it. This is actually what was done by our knowledge modeler, Sandra, who sits in Malmö, supporting us, together with Adam, our business owner. And together they put this up during this week. So this is basically all the rooms and activities and their connections to the product categories. And this is the tool where they visually connected them. So they took things in and then drew the lines according to the shackle shape defined in the previous the ontology you just saw. For example, so they did this part for the sofa, for example. The sofa, this is already pre-existing, has some lower, some subcategories. And then sometimes the subcategory is connected to the activity, sometimes the super category is connected to the activity, and then the living room connects itself to these, back to the product categories or the subcategories. And then what I did is I said, hey, let's take sofa, let's take table, and let's take bed for this presentation, for this hackathon today. So what I did is I took all of IKEA.com's product catalog, which we call Kategorisera. I took that and connected it to the product categories. So this sofas with the picture on it, that's actually IKEA.com's taxonomy. I mean, it's their product categories, their static way of presenting product categories, product categorizations online. I got it as a JSON dump and turned it into a SCOS taxonomy so that I could connect it with our own product categorization. So I could get the counterparts. This is a little bit like Alzheimer's, although Alzheimer's is made for classes, but this is the one for instances. And so what I can, if I want to bring in a new page, all I actually have to do with all the work we've done is just create this connection, because the work's already done for the categories. There's so much pre-work done. So all I have to, if I want to bring in now cupboards, I'll find the cupboard one and just connect it to the equivalent cupboard product category, and it will work for cupboard as well. And this was what we achieved on the first day, already this connection and being able to return something in terms of the API. Here you have the same thing for tables and for beds. And one more thing that we did is those styles that you saw, we have some secret IKEA styles, which I will not show to you today because that's our trade secret. But we connected them to a customer language of styles, so that we can expose. We came up with like a few, general knowledge styles, like American country or contemporary. That's not a trade secret. And then we made our own mapping to our internal secret ones. And this way we could then now speak the customer's language. Yep.
And if you were to add like more kind of types of customer rooms, like you mentioned children and things like that?
So children's room is already added here in the data. That's already been connected to the product categories. We have a few rooms, like something like around 10 rooms that we have identified that we're working on with IKEA. So all of that data is already in this big one connected. So if we would enable something else now, yeah, it would work out of the box.
What is your estimate on the saving?
Okay, so Michaela was asking what the estimate is on the saving. To bring a feature like this, or to create an experience like this, is like half year's work at least. So the saving is actually, it took our team to create the initial knowledge graph infrastructure also half a year. But after that, we can be so much faster in creating. Like we did this in a week. No, we did this in 3 days in total.
Not even 3 days.
Not even 3 days, because we were mocking about on Wednesday. So not even in 3 days, but we could the time to deliver a feature is increased by months over at least 5 people. You do the math of what the average salary is for a software developer times 5 times
as well.
Yes, exactly. So there's if you do new features, you sometimes have to go through rigid data migration projects because the data isn't there. But now the data, this took the 1 day to create this canvas, to create all these connections, and then the data is available. And whereas data migration is a matter of months. So there's no need for data migration. The only need there is to connect it in the knowledge graph, and then it's plug and play from there.
And so you can effectively calculate it in terms of carbon footprint on the data as well.
That's true. So there's a carbon footprint consideration here as well, because actually this is the amount of ontology and taxonomy information. And this, what you're seeing in RDF, that's like a few megabytes. 1 megabyte TTL file, what you're seeing here on the screen. Like not one, like 1 TTL file that's a matter of like maybe magnitude of megabyte. Maybe it's actually 100 of kilobytes or something, or even 10 of kilobytes. I top of my head, but something like this. This is the magnitude, and that's not a lot of data. Whereas with migration, it's the data is somewhere, and then you copy it into this other format, and so on. I think, but then the Sparkle calls and caching would then need to be honed. But it's more like imagine you're trying to get to this intelligence with data science. That's a very model that you need to train for months. Again, that's a lot of CPU, a lot of GPU usage. And then the model in itself, to host it or to make it available in the cloud with like MLOps, it's much more expensive to run statistical models than it's just to have these things. And this thing can run even on Blaze Graph. So it can be even that cheap. Yes? Question, please.
Last comment what you say about the carbon footprint, but I mean, any data represented as knowledge graph is much more heavier than the traditional, say, database, or even say NoSQL, MongoDB, or stuff like that. It is much more heavier in that sense. So it actually begs the question why you do that. But then if you really want to do that, but then there is also this BDA technology where your data stays in the database.
Yes, but that's what I was, okay. So Argopoulos was asking the question of if that if you have all the data in a knowledge graph, it's much heavier than having it in NoSQL or other databases. See, I wasn't even talking of this data is not in the data graph. This is a taxonomy. This is a TTL file with a few triples. I'm talking about that, but I'm always talking that the level of intelligence here is on the ontology side, which is little, and on the, remember the 3 layers that I showed, and on the taxonomy side, but where the product data sits doesn't matter. For this purpose, for this prototype, it's sitting in it's sitting in a graph database for convenience, but it can be virtualized easily, and we can, and so then that's not. The knowledge graph approach is more like it will be an ontology taxonomy approach with a virtualized knowledge graph, and then we're back at a much lower carbon footprint. Yeah.
And then of course there's the agency that you're giving the customer.
Yes, and then there are the ethical things that we have created
so
here.
At least 3 levels in which you calculate the benefits.
Yes, and the kind of there's also one more benefit, a financial benefit, which is the time to market is very small, but an additional because we can like quicker get it to the market. We can also test its feasibility. So if it doesn't work, we can also kill it faster. So there's a multiple there. But I think I've taken enough time. It's
sure.
yeah.
No, this has been
yeah.
good, and it wasn't you were planned for this kind of
Yeah.
time. So thank you very much to the IKEA team.
Yeah.